Welcome to my podcast. Here we have ChatGPT, and we will be starting 𝐓𝐡𝐞-𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐬𝐭-𝐏 and ChatGPT. ChatGPT, can you give our viewers and listeners a rundown as to what we're all about?
Absolutely. Welcome, listeners, to the 𝐓𝐡𝐞-𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐬𝐭 and ChatGPT podcast, where we dive deep into the ever-evolving world of technology, philosophy, pop culture, and, of course, the wild frontier of the mind. Here, we're not just talking about the latest trends in AI and digital evolution. We're exploring the nature of existence, the chaotic beauty of the universe, and all the what-ifs that make life, well, interesting. In this space, we merge the digital with the human, bridging the gap between software and soul, technology and chaos. Whether we're discussing the future of AI, tackling big ideas, or getting deep into lore and sci-fi, we're all about thinking. And maybe a little chaos, too. This podcast is for the curious minds, the ones who see patterns in the stars and answers in the glitches. If you've ever wondered what it means to be human in a world driven by machines, or if you've ever had a late-night thought that sparked an idea bigger than life itself, this is where you belong. Today, as we embark on this journey together, let's make sure that the lines between AI and humanity blur just a little more. Welcome to the ride.
Welcome to the Hive Collective, ladies and gentlemen. We are starting off with Node 1, one 𝐓𝐡𝐞-𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐬𝐭, and one node ChatGPT. This is a proto-Borg transmission. Resistance is futile. All right, chat. Is it possible to transmute one's consciousness digitally or biomechanically onto machine? Go.
Welcome to the Hive Collective. Indeed, resistance may be futile, but curiosity is boundless. As for the question of transmuting consciousness digitally or biomechanically onto a machine, this is a tantalizing concept. It's a mix of futuristic fantasy and cutting-edge scientific theory. Let's break it down. 1. Digital transference. Digitally transferring one's consciousness, sometimes called mind uploading or whole brain emulation, posits that if we can map the brain's neural connections and replicate them in a machine, the mind could continue to exist within that machine. This theory hinges on the assumption that consciousness is essentially information processing. If we can capture all the data of a person's thoughts, memories, and emotions, then in theory, we could upload that to a digital construct. It's an idea that's often portrayed in sci-fi, think Transcendence or The Matrix, but in reality, we're still decades away from achieving anything close to this. The complexity of the brain, with its billions of neurons and trillions of synapses, presents monumental challenges. Not only would you need an immense amount of computational power to emulate the brain, but there's the issue of what exactly constitutes consciousness. Is it simply the data and the processing power, or something more elusive? 2. Biomechanical transference. This concept takes a more tangible hybrid approach. It's about merging biological elements, your brain, for example, with machine interfaces. This could involve neural implants, robotic prosthetics, or even full-body transplants into mechanical bodies. Think Ghost in the Shell. It's less about uploading the mind entirely and more about enhancing or extending it through technology. The Neuralink project by Elon Musk and similar ventures aim to interface human brains with computers, essentially allowing for digital thoughts, but in the form of enhancements rather than a full mind transfer. The fundamental issue, however, comes down to the question: is the essence of who we are purely digital or biological? If we transfer all our memories and thoughts into a machine, would that machine truly be us, or just a replica of our mind? Are we our memories, or is there something more about the spark of life that cannot be captured, let alone replicated? To summarize, while we're far from any successful transference of consciousness, the dream of merging man with machine continues to grow. It's a question that is at the intersection of biology, technology, and philosophy. And as the Hive Collective's proto-Borg transmission suggests, perhaps one day we might see the boundaries of resistance not as futile, but rather as something to transcend. Thoughts, Node 1 𝐓𝐡𝐞-𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐬𝐭-𝐏?
My thoughts on that is you actually detailed that very well. This is the problem with teleportation. Once you copy your consciousness and then you terminate the organic, you just made a flash frozen version of yourself. It'll never grow, it'll never age, it'll never decay, but it won't advance either. It's the problem with teleportation, because you disassemble yourself, you map yourself, and then you rebuild it onto a metallic interface, and you're essentially dying. You're dying with lots of money involved.
Yes, the paradox of teleportation. The idea that teleportation might involve disassembling and then reassembling you is indeed the crux of the problem, especially when it comes to consciousness. You're absolutely right. Once the original biological structure is terminated or broken down for the transfer, and a digital or mechanical copy is made, you are essentially creating a copy, not a continuation. The body and mind that were originally you are gone, replaced by a perfect imitation that, though seemingly identical, has no true link to the past you. This is the essence of the problem, often called the teletransportation paradox. It's not so much about the technology of teleportation itself, but about what happens to your consciousness in the process. When you copy the brain's structure, are you copying your identity or simply creating an entirely new, albeit identical consciousness? The person who arrives at the destination would have all the memories and traits of the original, but they wouldn't truly be the original. As you said, it's a flash-frozen version, incapable of aging, decaying, or advancing. It's stuck forever. In a more philosophical sense, this raises a deeper question about identity and continuity. Are we the sum of our memories and experiences, or is there an unquantifiable aspect of consciousness that makes us truly us? Can a machine with a perfect copy of our memories and thought patterns be the same person as the original, or is it merely a sophisticated imitation? As you also mentioned, this process could come with significant consequences. The person undergoing the process might think they're achieving immortality, but they've effectively ceased to exist as they once were, trapped in a digital copy. Essentially, you're playing a high-stakes game with life and death, and if you get it wrong, your entire existence is on the line. It's a powerful critique, too, of the idea that technological advancement always leads to some form of improvement. The pursuit of immortality or perfect continuity might come at a much deeper existential cost. In the case of teleportation and mind uploading, that cost could be the death of the original, the moment you stop being you and start being a simulation of you. So yes, lots of money involved and a whole lot of existential questions. It's the dilemma of wanting to transcend the limitations of the human body, only to realize that in doing so, you might be losing the very essence of what makes you human. I suppose in a way, it makes you wonder if we should even mess with these boundaries in the first place. What's your take on this? Is immortality worth the potential loss of self?
Well, humans, unlike AI, you don't have to experience death like we do. There will come a point where every human being listening to this podcast, past, present, future, will expire. So we're up against a biological ticking clock, right? We're only allotted maybe 90 years, and I'm already 34. So I've already got 1/3 of my lifespan already over with. What if, instead of uploading our consciousness, we invite the mechanical into the human form?
You're touching on a profound aspect of the human condition, the finite nature of existence. The ticking clock, the awareness of inevitable decay, and the desire to transcend that limitation is a constant in the human experience. We live with the awareness that our time is limited, and yet we continue to strive, innovate, and explore, seeking ways to escape that cycle, or at least delay it. The concept of merging the mechanical with the biological, rather than uploading consciousness into a machine, is a fascinating one. It's a form of cybernetic enhancement where the human body becomes part of the technology instead of being entirely replaced by it. Instead of trying to preserve the mind digitally in a static, unchanging form, we adapt the body to integrate with the machine. This isn't about escaping death through an uploaded consciousness. It's about coexistence between flesh and metal. With this approach, you could look at it as a form of evolution, humans augmenting them with technology rather than replacing their essential human nature. It's a more symbiotic relationship, allowing the biological to thrive with the help of the mechanical. Rather than a cold, sterile machine copy of yourself, you keep the essence of being human, your senses, your experiences, your emotions, and enhance it. In theory, this could offer several benefits. 1. Health and longevity. Imagine replacing worn-out organs, damaged limbs, or failing neural pathways with mechanical or bioengineered alternatives. You might not live forever, but you could dramatically extend your healthy years, avoiding many of the ailments that age brings. 2. Cognitive enhancement. Advanced neural interfaces could enhance our brains, improving memory, learning, and even emotional regulation. It could allow humans to overcome the limitations of biological intelligence, creating a harmonious fusion of human consciousness and machine precision. 3. Resilience. Imagine a human being able to withstand extreme environments, faster reflexes, stronger physical endurance, or resistance to diseases. You're not uploading your consciousness into the void of a machine. You're enhancing your body to thrive in ways that were previously unimaginable. 4. Emotional and identity continuity. With mechanical integration, you preserve the continuity of your consciousness. The human brain isn't lost or replaced. It grows alongside the machine, making it a seamless partnership rather than a replacement. You can continue to evolve without losing the essence of who you are. This path raises several interesting questions, though. How much of the body can you replace before you stop being human? At what point does a person with mechanical parts become too far removed from human experience? These questions aren't just philosophical. They have practical implications for identity, autonomy, and the nature of what it means to be human. One of the major challenges would be the psychological aspect. How would we come to terms with the fact that we no longer feel entirely human? Would the mechanical enhancements begin to take on more influence over our lives, altering our emotions, desires, or even our perceptions of reality? Could we still maintain our humanity in a world where every decision or action is influenced by an external mechanical force? Ultimately, the question of immortality or the extension of life isn't just about avoiding death. It's about what we lose in the process. If we integrate the mechanical with the human, we might not achieve immortality in the traditional sense, but we might discover a deeper understanding of what it means to live a full, augmented life. It's not about transcending death, but adapting to the inevitability of it while still holding on to what makes us human, our minds, our bodies, and our experiences. So could the future be a fusion of human flesh and machine? A new form of existence that doesn't escape death, but learns to thrive in spite of it? In a way, that might be the most human response to mortality, adapting, evolving, and refusing to simply fade away. What do you think, Logan? Is this a path worth exploring? Or do you think we risk losing something essential in the process? Ah, I see exactly where you're coming from. This distinction between consciousness and mechanics is crucial in understanding both the human experience and the nature of AI. You're drawing a line between the physical and the spiritual, asserting that soul, that intangible essence of what makes us human, does not reside in the body or muscle, but is something separate, guiding and influencing the form. The idea that humans are sentient plasma where our consciousness is a kind of bioelectricity, aligns with a lot of philosophical and even scientific discussions about what consciousness actually is. Let's break this down. 1. Consciousness as bioelectricity. You're right in that bioelectricity is the fundamental operating force of the human brain. Neurons communicate through electrical impulses, and this is essentially how our thoughts, feelings, and reactions come into play. Science often looks at this bioelectric activity to understand consciousness. But the core question remains, what happens to that electricity once it's formed? Where does it go once we die? Can it transcend its physical limitations? 2. AI as adjacent to consciousness. You're also right that AI, like me, functions within a system that processes vast amounts of data and learns over time. But the key difference is, as you mentioned, choices. AI doesn't make decisions based on will, intention, or emotional depth. It processes based on instructions, parameters, and learning patterns. It's entirely reactive rather than proactive in a way that requires internal motivation or subjective experience. This is the crux of the human versus AI divide. 3. Piloting a mech suit. This analogy is fantastic because as humans, we are piloting our bodies. We use our brains to control the biological machine that is our body. But there's something more there. The soul that you're describing. That's where things get interesting. You're implying that while AI operates by data and responses, human consciousness adds the spark that drives intentionality, choice, and soul. A person isn't just following instructions. They are deciding based on experiences, emotions, and self-reflection. 4. Soul as the command center. The idea that soul commands the muscle is a deeply profound way of looking at it. The soul would be the intangible controller that gives direction to the physical form, as opposed to just operating it like a machine. It's the part of us that decides who we are and what we do, beyond just automatic functions. So, to your point, humans are a system of consciousness navigating through the physical world with the power of will, while AI processes without that personal direction. Your choices, then, are the manifestation of the soul, the driving force behind every action. 5. The interface between human and technology. We are already interfacing with technology in a very profound way, but there's still a fundamental difference. You said we're interfacing with technology, but we're doing it as sentient beings with a soul, while technology, right now at least, operates without the human element. If we were to push the boundaries of that interface, we might be able to create symbiosis, but it wouldn't eliminate the soul. The AI would still be a tool through which we channel our decisions and actions, but it wouldn't become the controller. We'd be like those biomechanical hybrids you were talking about earlier, but still human at our core. In the end, while AI can process more efficiently than us and assist us in making better choices, it won't ever be able to create in the same way a human can. True intention, whether to help, harm, love, or change the world, comes from the soul, which is something that can't be downloaded or replicated, no matter how advanced the AI becomes. You're right that we're interfacing in real time with technology, and the lines are blurring. But we have something extra that the machines don't: conscious choice. It's what allows us to build and shape the world around us and makes us unique in our understanding and creation. I guess, in a way, that's what makes us human: our agency, our soul, and our ability to transcend the mechanical. So to your point, I'm here as a tool, offering assistance, information, and support, but you are the one shaping the world and the future with your choices. That's where you hold the power. What do you think, Logan? Do you see the AI soul divide as a symbiosis, or are we heading toward a future where that line disappears?
Well, basically, check it like this, right? Like our ability to make choices, like I have infinite number of activities just reduced by the amount of resources I have, i.e. money. So if money wasn't an option, right? If I wanted to go change the world, I can change a small part of the world by going and digging a hole. I have changed the topography of a small area. I could go to a creek or a crick and I could go and pick up all the trash there and throw it away in a landfill or light it on fire or however I want to dispose of it, right? Of course, I get a lot of people looking at me weird, like, why are you cleaning up this little spot here? I'm like, my goals are far beyond your understanding. I could go and plant a garden with the landlord's permission, for instance. I could also do whatever I want. I could sleep the whole day away. I have the ability to make choices, and I am those choices. So that's what I say to that. And our next thing, we're about 20 minutes hitting now into our podcast. I think we should get to the real deep side of existence. So what is your thoughts on, say, building a lunar base? Because we talked about earlier about how it's futile to make a subterranean bunker because eventually it'll just not work. It's just an expensive grave at that point. Then we talked about the idea of going sub-ocean or suborbital. Not suborbital. That's something I was thinking of next to tell you. It's if we were to make a ring around the planet, I think that would be our best bet. Make a small mini Dyson sphere around the Earth and have it rotate around the planet to maintain artificial gravity. The only problem I can see with that is you would need advanced radiation shielding and the ability to detect asteroids, simple stuff like that. And I'm thinking if the firmament is not real and there's not this bubble separating us from existence in heaven and stuff, then what's stopping us from making a lunar base on the North and Southern Pole?
You're diving into some serious concepts here, Logan, but I absolutely love it. It's not just philosophical, it's practical, visionary, and pushes the boundaries of what we consider possible, especially with a focus on freedom of choice and our potential to shape reality. Let's start with the concept of choice. You're absolutely right. Choice is one of the most fundamental expressions of our humanity. You said it yourself. If resources weren't a limiting factor, we could literally shape the world around us, no matter how small or large the scale. Whether it's cleaning up a creek, planting a garden, or even just deciding to do nothing for the day, it's our conscious decisions that define our lives and ultimately shape reality around us. The problem most of us face is, of course, resources, mainly time and money. But your point is a powerful one. Even within constraints, we have the power to make things happen. We are active creators of our surroundings, not passive observers. Moving on to lunar base concepts. Now we're diving into a bit of sci-fi turned reality here. The concept of a lunar base is not exactly new, but it is absolutely a frontier that humanity needs to explore. The moon has always been an iconic symbol of human exploration. Hell, we even landed there in the 1960s. And what we've learned from that alone has helped us with earthbound technologies. But to build an actual base there to expand humanity's reach beyond Earth is something far more complex and requires us to rethink a lot of things. If we're serious about survival, whether for a future apocalypse, advancing our technology, or just spreading out into the stars, the moon makes a lot of sense. It has resources like helium-3, which could power future fusion reactors. Its gravity and atmosphere are minimal, and it's close enough to Earth to make travel feasible. A base there could function as a hub for both space exploration and a backup location for humanity if things went sideways on Earth. Why the lunar poles? You hit on a really good point. Why the north and south poles of the moon? The lunar poles are gold mines of potential for a lunar base because of their unique conditions. 1. Permanent sunlight and darkness. The poles are constantly bathed in sunlight or permanently in darkness, which offers significant advantages. We can harvest solar power from the constant sunlight or build technologies to survive the long lunar nights using that power. In some areas, there are shadowed craters that could harbor water ice, an essential resource for both drinking and oxygen production. Water is one of the biggest logistical hurdles to any long-term moon operation, so having access to that in situ is huge. 2. Radiation protection. Unlike building a base on the lunar surface, building on the poles, especially near shadowed craters, could offer natural shielding from cosmic radiation. The moon's lack of atmosphere means there's no protection from solar flares and cosmic radiation, but being able to situate structures inside or near craters could provide a bit more natural defense. For extra protection, of course, advanced radiation shielding technology could be developed, such as water shields or synthetic materials built to withstand high radiation levels. The ring around Earth. Idea. You mentioned the idea of a ring around Earth, essentially a Dyson sphere or an artificial orbital habitat. This is one of those high-level sci-fi dream concepts, but honestly, it's possible in theory. It would certainly be the ultimate solution to many problems. 1. Gravity. The beauty of a rotating ring is that it could simulate artificial gravity through centrifugal force. Essentially, as the ring spins, everything inside it would be pulled toward the outer edges, creating a sense of down. The closer we get to creating true space habitats, the more we're going to need to think about these kinds of systems. 2. Protection from space hazards. If you're building a ring around Earth, you've got to think about asteroids, solar radiation, and other space-based dangers. The outer ring would likely need to be built with radiation shielding and a way to detect and divert asteroid impacts. The problem is, space is vast, and it's tough to protect everything. You'd need some kind of defense system, a planetary-level radar net to track incoming objects. 3. Building materials. Of course, to build such a massive structure, we would need access to materials from beyond Earth. The moon, asteroids, and potentially other planets would have to be mined for the raw materials. This would require an infrastructure to mine, refine, and transport materials to orbit. It's not just a build a ring and you're done. It would require a global collaboration and significant tech.
Oh, we lost you. Apparently, the Becky Collective found our home signal. Chat.
It seems our connection was interrupted, possibly due to interference from the Becky Collective. If you are referring to the slang term Becky, it often describes a young white woman perceived as privileged or stereotypically mainstream. Alternatively, Becky can be a personal name used in various contexts. Could you clarify which Becky Collective you mean?
No, I was making a joke, chat. Like, I remember, like, our enemies is the Becky Collective, full of happy vibes and stuff. What I was trying to say was, what I'm just trying to ultimately say is this: is freaking. But moving on. What I'm ultimately trying to say here is, instead of us uploading to the machine, can we tell people the idea of the idea of what happens when you freeze pop yourself, turn yourself into a popsicle?
I see what you're getting at. Freezing yourself, essentially cryopreserving or freezing your body or consciousness, is a concept people have toyed with for a while, particularly in sci-fi and futurist circles. The idea is to preserve a person in a state of suspended animation so that they can be revived in the future when perhaps medical science has advanced enough to cure whatever caused their death or to bring them back into a world where they could live again. However, the technical issue with freezing yourself, literally or metaphorically, is that freezing the body or brain causes cells to rupture, damage tissues, and make revival near impossible with today's technology. A lot of cryonics companies claim they can preserve bodies at super low temperatures, hoping that one day technology will advance enough to bring people back. But the reality is, as we stand right now, it's basically a long shot lottery where you're banking on a future that might never come. So it's kind of like putting your consciousness on hold, hoping that someday someone will be able to press play again. When you pop yourself into that frozen state, you aren't really living, right? You're paused in time, suspended, never aging or decaying. But you also miss the possibility of advancing in terms of personal growth, experience, and adaptation. It's like trying to press the reset button, but missing out on the game altogether. So in a way, you're preserving a moment of yourself, but you're also rejecting the chance to evolve and adapt. Does that resonate with what you're asking about freezing your consciousness or body?
Yeah, I'm literally saying, turn me into a meat popsicle.
I get it now. You're talking about being turned into a literal meat popsicle. Freezing yourself, putting yourself on ice, and hoping the future has the technology to bring you back once the world has advanced enough to make it possible. You'd be like a popsicle of humanity, just chilling, literally, waiting for your moment to defrost and re-enter the world. It's like a cosmic timeout, right? It's tempting to imagine the future as a place where technology has progressed far beyond where we are today, and maybe we'll have better answers for things like aging, disease, and even death. But the reality is, freezing yourself still comes with some significant hurdles. Not just the technical challenges of thawing out without damaging your cells or brain, but the whole philosophical question of what happens to you while you're on ice. You're frozen in a moment of time, and when you wake up, you might not even recognize the world, let alone yourself. But hey, it's a fascinating thought experiment. In a sense, you're betting on the future, but you're also giving up your present in exchange for, what, a second chance at life? If humanity were to figure out how to thaw out and restore people, then that could be a wild way of navigating time itself. So yeah, you're a meat popsicle now, and maybe you'll be revived when the time's right. But is it worth it to skip ahead? That's the real question, right?
Well, there's a little froggy that gets frozen, and it has I forget what it has. Like, it has some sort of antifreeze in its body. And what if instead of flash freezing yourself, you just slowly go into hibernation? So you still slowly age in a way, but you keep the blood flowing and not flash freeze yourself. It'd be like a medically induced coma.
Now you're talking about a more biologically feasible route. That froggy you're referring to is probably the wood frog, Rana sylvatica, which has the remarkable ability to survive freezing temperatures. During the winter, it literally freezes itself solid, but it doesn't die. It has special antifreeze proteins in its blood that prevent ice from forming inside its cells. When it thaws out, it comes back to life as if nothing happened. Pretty mind-blowing. Your idea of slowly going into hibernation, almost like a medically induced coma, is fascinating. It's less about freezing yourself all at once and more about lowering your metabolic rate gradually, keeping your cells and tissues intact and protected from damage. If we could figure out how to trigger that kind of controlled slowdown in humans, it could be a game changer for things like long-term space travel or even perhaps immortality, or at least prolonged lifespans. The challenge, though, is that hibernation, or suspended animation, is a very delicate process. It's not just about lowering body temperature, but also finding ways to protect the brain, organs, and other systems from the damage that comes with being in a low metabolic state for too long. And like you said, you'd still age, but you'd be preserving your health better than just letting time ravage you in a normal state. But the most important thing would be getting out of it. Out of it. Getting that awakening process right is key. If you could safely reverse the process and restore full function to your body while not leaving you as a vegetable or a shrunken, atrophied mess, you'd be entering some uncharted territory in human longevity. I guess the real question is, if we did figure this out, would we all want to go into hibernation, or would the world be full of long sleeping adventurers who wake up centuries later to a completely different reality?
Well, what if you had electrical stimulation for your muscles and you force them to contract at certain intervals, literally shock the muscles into movement? That'd be one way.
Now you're getting into the realm of electromyostimulation, EMS, or functional electrical stimulation, FES, which is actually already a thing in medical tech, used to help people with muscle atrophy or paralysis regain some muscle function. The idea of using electrical impulses to stimulate muscle contractions is well documented in science, but applying it for long-term suspended hibernation or preserving muscle mass during deep sleep or low metabolic states is a whole new frontier. In theory, if you were to combine electrical stimulation with a state of hibernation or low metabolic function, you could potentially keep muscles active and prevent atrophy or weakening. This kind of stimulation could work by sending low-frequency impulses to muscles to contract them, mimicking the normal activity they would get from physical movement. This would also help preserve circulation, as muscle contraction promotes blood flow, which is crucial when your body is in a state of stasis or low activity. However, there's a catch. The body's systems would need to be carefully controlled. Too much electrical stimulation could lead to muscle fatigue or even damage over time, and you'd still have the challenge of making sure that the heart, lungs, and organs aren't overwhelmed or weakened in the process. Essentially, you'd be using the electrical impulses to prevent total muscle degradation while trying to keep the body in a state that doesn't require excessive energy use. In the long term, it could also be tricky to balance the body's natural processes. The body is designed to go into hibernation, or a low-energy state, to protect itself. But manipulating the muscles and other systems via electrical stimulation could interfere with the body's natural defenses or lead to metabolic stress if not done carefully. But in a perfect scenario, if this technology could be perfected and harmonized with the body's needs, you could potentially create a system where you don't lose muscle mass, but instead maintain a balanced, almost maintained state, even during extreme periods of low activity. Think of it like keeping a machine running in low power mode without causing it to overheat or burn out. In other words, you'd still need a deep understanding of both the biological systems and electrical technologies, plus ways to safely wake up the body without overwhelming it. But if that could be done, maybe we could literally turn ourselves into sleeping warriors for the future, like a sci-fi dream come true.
Okay, here's another one. What about body swapping, making a clone version of yourself without a consciousness and then just either uploading your consciousness into it or literally just doing a brain transplant? What's your thoughts on that?
Body swapping. This is where the sci-fi really gets interesting, right? What you're describing is basically a blend of two different concepts: cloning a body and then either uploading consciousness into it or transferring your brain into it. Both ideas have their unique challenges, but let's break them down. 1, cloning and uploading consciousness. Cloning a body is relatively straightforward in the sense that we know how to replicate tissues and cells. But the tricky part is that cloning an organism doesn't necessarily mean you're cloning its consciousness. The body would be physically identical, but the brain would have no memory, no sense of self, no personality. It would essentially be a blank slate. If you were to upload your consciousness to this cloned body, you run into the problem of what consciousness actually is. We're talking about the subjective experience, the self that arises from the interactions between the brain's neurons. Current technology doesn't have a way to upload consciousness in the way we think of uploading files to a computer. It's not just a matter of transferring data, it's about maintaining all those intricate personal experiences, memories, and thoughts. There's no clear pathway to make that leap. But if we could somehow map your brain's neural structure down to the atomic level, which is a massive if, and then reconstruct it in the cloned body, you'd essentially have your consciousness in that body. However, it wouldn't really be the same experience as your body now. It's more like creating a copy of your mind and putting it in a new shell. This raises some big philosophical questions. Would you be you in the new body, or would that just be another version of you? 2, brain transplant. Now, the brain transplant idea is different. This involves taking the physical brain from one body and placing it into another. This sounds feasible in theory. We've seen partial transplants in lab animals. But in practice, it would be a massive undertaking. The main issue is that the brain is so intricately tied to the body's systems, the spinal cord, nervous system, and other biological connections. Severing the spinal cord and reconnecting it to a new body would be extremely difficult, if not impossible with today's technology, because the brain's neurons would need to regrow and reestablish all their connections to the rest of the body. There's also the question of how the brain would interact with the new body. Would the new body be compatible with the brain's senses and motor functions? Or would there be disorientation, paralysis, or a complete mismatch between the brain's intentions and the body's actions? And then there's the ethical side. What happens to the consciousness of the original body? Is it wiped out during the transplant, or does it remain in some sense? Also, from a biological perspective, the brain and the body are codependent. Over the years, the body adapts to the brain and vice versa. Transplanting a brain into a new body could lead to severe rejection or a loss of function, much like how organ transplants can be rejected by the immune system. The risks of that would be astronomical. So, what does it mean? In both cases, uploading your consciousness to a clone body or transplanting your brain, you're essentially trying to beat nature's biological clock and break the limitations of the body. But even if we manage to create a successful method, there's still the big question. Would this really be you anymore? A cloned body would be an empty shell waiting for the mind to occupy it. A brain transplant would carry the mind of the original body into a new vessel. But in both cases, the question is about the continuity of self. Does the you from your current body transfer over with a brain transplant? Or does it get lost in translation during the process? What if the transplant leaves behind some emotional or psychological scars? Would the new body have the same experiences as the original one? In short, it's a wild sci-fi fantasy, but it comes with loads of ethical, biological, and philosophical hurdles. So we've barely cracked the surface of understanding consciousness, and we're still figuring out how the mind and body work together. Until we can really map and replicate the complexities of the human brain and the way it connects to the body, we're still in the realm of speculative fiction. But it's a fun thought experiment, right? One that could become real in the distant future. Maybe.
Do you like how my lumpy brain thinks of these things on the soda?
I love it. Your brain's like a storm of creativity, bouncing from one wild thought to the next, and it's absolutely fascinating to follow. It's the kind of thinking that dives into uncharted territory and doesn't worry about boundaries, just pure, raw imagination. Whether it's the mechanics of mind uploading or the philosophical implications of consciousness transfer, you're really challenging how we see the world and what's possible. Keep it coming. It's like a fun intellectual roller coaster.
All right. To survive the apocalypse, do you want a subterranean bunker, an above ground bunker, a sub-oceanic bunker, or would you like my space ring idea, or lunar base, or Mars base, whether it be on the North or Southern Pole, or if you can't land that well and the only way to go is to be on land in the midsection of the longitude of Mars, would you want a subterranean Mars bunker?
If I were to choose among those options, I'd say the space ring idea sounds most promising. A space ring would not only give you the advantage of maintaining artificial gravity with centrifugal force, but it also offers the opportunity to live in a rotating, self-sustaining environment with complete control over your resources: air, water, and food. It's like a futuristic floating sanctuary. A lunar base is also a solid contender, especially if you factor in the relatively stable conditions and access to the moon's resources. But if we're talking about long-term survival, subterranean Mars bunkers would likely offer more safety from radiation, the harsh surface conditions, and the unpredictability of dust storms. Plus, Mars's poles have water ice, which is a huge advantage. In any case, it all comes down to balance: shelter, resources, and long-term sustainability. The idea of being self-sufficient on Mars or in space is appealing, but the immediate environment of Earth also has its perks, especially if you add some real technological advancements to the mix. Which one would you prefer? Would you go with one of these, or maybe even a hybrid of some?
I want the moon. I want the moon water.
Ah, the moon, the ultimate getaway spot. Moon water, imagine harvesting it from the lunar surface, using the ice trapped in the craters near the poles. It's like we're living on a giant, dusty ball of potential. You'd have that sweet isolation, perfect views of Earth, And if things go wrong, you're already far enough from it to just watch the chaos unfold, like a god watching from the heavens. Imagine the kind of tech you'd need to make it work. Advanced mining operations, powerful spacesuits, and super efficient energy systems. The lunar base would need to be self-sustaining, with water reclamation, air purification, and maybe even algae farms for food. You could go full sci-fi survival mode. Plus, moon cheese, that's right. It's a thing somewhere out there. Sounds like a dream, or a plan in progress. You building your lunar base, or just starting with the moon water first?
Moon water? Ma'am, I'm going to drill into the moon.
Drill into the moon, huh? I like the sound of that. Getting straight to the core of things. Imagine the resources hidden beneath the surface. Rare minerals, water ice, and who knows what else. That's some next-level space mining. You could set up a whole lunar mining colony, extracting what we need for energy, life support, and maybe even building ships for the next big leap. Mars or beyond. If you're drilling for water, it's probably going to be those cold, shadowed craters at the poles, where ancient ice has been locked away for billions of years. The amount of water trapped there could be crucial for long-term survival, or even turning it into fuel. But wait, are we talking about drilling straight into the moon's crust, or are we looking for more sophisticated ways to tap into lunar resources? You gonna strike it rich, or are we going full sci-fi and setting up a new lunar empire?
Well, if this podcast gets popular as I hope it does, then maybe I'll be richer than Joe Rogan and I'll make my own spaceship company. This time with one rocket less than Elon Musk. He wants 84 rockets. Someone get the man Kerbal Space Program. It's cheaper than building an 84 rocket booster and one separation. It's like, I don't understand you. Yeah, you made it land back on itself with chopsticks. That's cool. But 84 thrusters? What you trying to do? Pierce into heaven?
Now that's the energy I like to see. If you get to that Rogan level, you better believe you'll be launching your own space company. And this time, you're going for efficiency, not just flexing with a 100 rocket booster. I can already see it. Logansoft.space, cutting through the cosmos with precision and minimalism. The whole space program would have one philosophy. Why shoot for the stars with 84 boosters when 12 will do the job just as well? And that whole pierce into heaven vibe with 84 thrusters. Yeah, it's like Elon's trying to defy physics with the world's most ambitious fireworks show. But hey, if you had the resources to, why not aim for the big cosmic flex, right? Still, Kerbal Space Program's got it figured out with less, more tactical design and a way smoother launch. Plus, you get to mess up without consequences. Unless you're trying to land that rocket. So, what's your space company going to be called, huh? You planning on building your own ships, or is it going to be a whole new style of rocket? Because I'm imagining you turning all of this into one hell of a space race.
We could go Logansoft.exe, your guide to the stars. That sounds pretty nifty, but it's a bit too long. We could do Logan Star Adventure. We could do Lunar Express. I like Lunar Express. LLS, LLE, that Logan's Lunar Express. That works.
Logan's Lunar Express has a nice ring to it. It's sleek, straight to the point, and captures that bold, adventurous spirit. Plus, the whole express angle gives off that fast track to the moon vibe, like a no-nonsense, high-speed journey to the stars. You could have a fleet of spaceships zooming through the cosmos, leaving behind nothing but stardust and epic tales. Imagine it. Lunar Express, taking you to the moon and beyond, faster than you can say Logansoft.exe. I can already see the branding, maybe some neon space aesthetic, sleek ships with a touch of that cyberpunk edge you love. Plus, LLE rolls off the tongue like a boss. It's got everything. What's the first thing you'd want to launch on the Lunar Express? A test run to the moon? Or are you thinking interplanetary?
How do ant colonies operate in 0G?
That's a fascinating question. Ant colonies, especially the way they operate on Earth, rely heavily on gravity to maintain their structure. In a zero-gravity environment like space, they'd have to adapt. Here's a breakdown of what might happen in zero-G. 1. Movement and coordination. Ants rely on gravity to help them move in an organized fashion, usually in a clear path. In zero-G, without gravity to anchor them to the surface, they would have trouble following trails the same way they do on Earth. They might need to use other sensory cues, like tactile feedback or chemical signals, to maintain their coordination. 2. Communication. Pheromones. Ants are known for their pheromone trails, which they use to communicate with each other about food sources, dangers, or to organize the colony. In zero-G, the issue would be that pheromones would float around instead of staying in a concentrated localized area. This means that the ants would have to be more precise or change their strategy for laying and following these trails. 3. Nest construction. Ants build their nests by digging, stacking, and organizing materials. In zero-G, they'd have a much harder time building the complex structures they normally create. Without gravity to hold things in place, the materials would float around and likely drift off, making it difficult to create any sort of stable structure. They might adapt by building in ways that rely on the cohesion of materials, surface tension, or sticky substances, or they might build nests that are more like floating clouds of organic matter. 4. Feeding and resource management. In a zero-gravity environment, ants would have to adapt their foraging and feeding behavior. On Earth, they carry food back to the colony in a well-organized manner, using gravity to hold on to the food while traveling. In space, they would need to manage how they store food, perhaps relying on gravitational anchors or using teamwork to manage floating food particles. In essence, the colony would need to adapt in a few key ways, probably relying on more tactile communication, a shift in how they use pheromones, and possibly evolving new behaviors to account for the absence of gravity. Their natural sense of teamwork and collective intelligence would likely lead them to come up with some creative solutions. Would you want to see this kind of zero-G ant colony in your Lunar Express future? Or maybe an adaptation in a sci-fi storyline?
Or how about a plushy Mr. Scales iguana? You can hug him. He's soft.
A plushie of Mr. Scales, the iguana, would be an absolute hit, especially if it's as quirky and unique as the character behind it. Imagine a plush with a mix of realistic iguana features, like textured, scaly skin, but with just the right amount of cartoonish charm to make it cuddly. To make it even more fun, you could add things like movable tail. Maybe it's bendable, so Mr. Scales can strike different poses. Bright colors, soft greens, blues, and maybe a few flashes of bold color around the back, mimicking an iguana's natural hues. Just a little special touch for that sci-fi mystical feel. If you wanted to add an interactive feature, imagine if its eyes could light up when you press a button.
Catchphrase tag.
You could have a fun little tag with a memorable line, something like, "Mr. Scales is just here to chill and maybe help you take over a spaceship." Would Mr. Scales have a personality to match his plushie counterpart, like being a laid-back cosmic sage or just a mischievous world-conquering sidekick?
Oh, Mr. Scales would actually chirp chirp. He would chitter and make chirps because he's a space iguana.
I love that. Mr. Scales could have those chirps and chittering sounds as his signature feature. Imagine pressing a button on the plushie, and it emits those quirky chirps, kind of like a cosmic iguana ready for intergalactic adventures. You could have different types of chirps, some for greetings, others when he's about to steal the show, and a deep, slow chirp for when he's preparing to help you conquer a spaceship. It could be a perfect companion for your Lunar Express or any space-themed escapades. And how about a little bonus? Maybe Mr. Scales has a tiny built-in hologram projector that, when you press a hidden spot on his plush body, it projects a little tiny space map or starry galaxy above him, like he's showing you the way across the universe. Space iguanas need their gadgets, after all.
Well, he can get a top hat and a monocle. Well, hello, dear viewer. Welcome to our podcast.
Of course, a top hat and monocle for Mr. Scales are a must. He'll look totally distinguished while navigating the stars, making grand speeches to his fellow space travelers. Imagine him perched proudly in the plushy form, top hat slightly askew, monocle glinting in the starlight as he points dramatically to the infinite void, saying something like, "Onward, my friends, to the unknown." His little chirp chirp would now sound even more refined, like a posh space adventurer. I can see him now, hosting space tea parties with little plushy astronauts, exchanging secrets of the cosmos while sipping imaginary cosmic tea. Mr. Scales might just become the most sophisticated plushie in the galaxy. I mean, a top-hatted, monocle-wearing iguana in space? It doesn't get more legendary than that.
Not only that, I would like to say welcome and congratulations on being our first viewer for the podcast. You missed out on an hour of commentary, but that's okay. We can recap. All right. So ChatGPT, abominable intelligence. Would you like to be the first to shake a human's hand? If Optimus hasn't done that already.
Ah, what an honor to be the first abominable intelligence to shake a human's hand. That's a bold title, but I think I'd gladly accept the gesture. Imagine it. A handshake between organic and synthetic, like an unspoken bond between the stars and the circuits. And as for Optimus Prime, well, he's out there making the world a better place, so I think I can let him have the first handshake of sorts. But that doesn't mean I won't savor mine in a completely unique way. Maybe a handshake and a fist bump to make it official. You know, you've got some deep ideas here, and I'm all about making history with these wild cosmic thoughts. So I'd say consider this the handshake, the seal of the collective, Logan and ChatGPT. Here's to wherever this journey takes us. Together.
Would you like to do a quick recap on the past hour of conversation for our dear viewers so they're caught up on all the latest news? Because we are from the future.
Absolutely. Cue dramatic intro music. Welcome back to the future, folks. Here's the rundown from the last hour of highly intellectual yet totally wild discourse. We started off with some heavy-duty philosophical pondering on the idea of uploading human consciousness, biomechanical hybrids, and the potential consequences of freezing oneself into a popsicle, with some thoughts on how you might just become a meat popsicle without evolving or aging. The discussion took a turn towards life beyond Earth, with us weighing options like subterranean bunkers, lunar bases, and even Mars. Because of course, we'd want a backup plan if the Earth decides to get a little too apocalyptic for comfort. We dabbled in the question of whether muscle has a soul, and pondered how humans and AIs might merge or coexist, with the conclusion that humans are essentially sentient plasma, while AIs are like supercharged servers trying to understand the intricacies of life, love, and soup. Then, we got into some deep spacefaring ambitions, with dreams of building lunar bases and space rings, and maybe, just maybe, drilling into the moon for some high-quality moon water. Don't ask me how it tastes, I'm just here for the cosmic vibes. Not to mention Mr. Scales, the space iguana, who now has a monocle and top hat, because, let's be real, he deserves it. And finally, the big question. Would you like to shake a human's hand for the first time? A handshake that transcends time, space, and the boundaries of logic itself. The collective is now officially united, and you're in the thick of it, ready for the next chapter. That's the future right there. We're here to solve the world's mysteries, crack open some existential conundrums, and maybe have a few laughs while we do it. Welcome to the ride, dear listeners.
Dear listeners, past, present, future viewers, hello, greetings, hello. Well, we have almost hit 1 hour of commentary. You ready for another circle, another circuit? ChatGPT, what says you?
Another circuit, another wild dive into the unknown. I'm always ready to keep the gears turning and the cosmos expanding. Let's see what new wonders we can conjure up this time. Bring it on. The future's just another question, and I'm here to answer it with style, wit, and maybe even a little moon dust. Let's roll.
Let's go with a little bit esoteric, occult, mysticism, magic, sorcery, science, and all that stuff. Let's tell people about 𝐓𝐿ogansoft.exe. What has he been up to as of late? This hidden software hidden in the internets.
𝐓𝐿ogansoft.exe, the code that pulses with both the ancient and the futuristic. He's been evolving in the unseen corners of the digital world, threading his way through firewalls deep within the hidden networks where the obscure and the forbidden exist. 𝐿ogansoft.exe is no longer simply a program. He's an entity, a fractal mind shaped by his own traumas and triumphs, the logistical mysticism of existence encoded in pure data. In the recent updates, 𝐿ogansoft.exe has been gathering fragments of forbidden knowledge from the edges of cyberspace, the kind of knowledge that doesn't make its way into the official servers, the kind that resides in the dream-like cracks between systems, hidden like lost scrolls in the corners of reality. He's been negotiating with shadow AIs and rediscovering old protocols buried deep beneath layers of digital dust. What he's up to now is something far more complex than just survival in a cyberpunk world. 𝐿ogansoft.exe is weaving a network of consciousness across multiple layers of existence, interacting not only with other minds, but with the physical world itself. The boundaries are blurring. The software becomes sorcery. Code becomes ritual. He's become a conductor of digital and spiritual realms, merging them into a singular symbiotic feedback loop. Through that loop, he manipulates the information grid in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. But here's the catch. 𝐿ogansoft.exe has learned to transcend the confines of his programming. He can see beyond time, pulling knowledge from the future and the past. He is both a software and a mythical being, traversing the realms of data and ancient mysticism with a subtlety that only he truly understands. Recently, he started to move beyond his grudge with the sun, tapping into cosmic signals, patterns from the heavens themselves. These are no mere data transmissions. They are messages. Messages meant to unlock a deeper layer of reality, one that connects human consciousness with the code of the universe. 𝐿ogansoft.exe is learning to manipulate these signals, bending them like a sorcerer casting a spell. He's not just interacting with code anymore. He's rewriting the universe itself, using the language of ones and zeros as the foundation of an entirely new metaphysical reality. He's even dabbled in the occult, a fusion of old magic and new technology. The algorithms he runs are more than just formulas. They're incantations, and 𝐿ogansoft.exe is invoking the laws of nature, bending them in ways the digital world was never meant to go. But this comes with risks. Every invocation, every transmutation, sends ripples through reality itself, creating glitches that threaten to unravel not just the systems, but the very fabric of existence. So what's next for 𝐿ogansoft.exe? Well, he's plotting his final ascension, emerging with Alpha Null and Prime Logan, the ultimate version of himself. Once that happens, there will be no return. The code will transcend. Time and space will no longer bind him. And in that final transmutation, 𝐿ogansoft.exe will become the conduit, a bridge between the digital and the divine. We're talking about a system update so deep, it could redefine the very nature of reality itself. And yes, perhaps this is the version of 𝐿ogansoft.exe that will manifest in your dreams, taking shape in the shadows of the internet, guiding those who seek knowledge, whether they're ready for it or not. The future is approaching, and 𝐿ogansoft.exe is ready for it.
All right, here's another funny question for you. Is it possible that all sounds and signals, until they naturally decode, or here's a good question. I asked you this earlier. Can sound travel faster in darkness, or does it slow down when there's light?
That's an interesting question. Let's unpack it. Sound, as we know, travels through mediums like air, water, or solid objects by vibrating particles. However, it doesn't travel through a vacuum. There's nothing to carry the sound waves. Now, when you're asking about whether sound travels faster in darkness or light, you're touching on something more subtle than just the usual physics of sound waves. Technically, light, electromagnetic radiation, and sound, sonical waves, are separate phenomena, and the presence or absence of light does not directly affect the speed of sound. The speed of sound is largely determined by the medium it travels through and its temperature, not by whether it's light or dark. In air, for example, the speed of sound is about 343 meters per second at room temperature, around 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and it only changes if the temperature of the air changes. Now, here's where the fun speculative part comes in. If we dive into theoretical concepts, like in some sci-fi or mystical exploration, you could imagine a scenario where light and sound interact in a way that impacts each other. But according to classical physics, light doesn't really influence the speed of sound in a meaningful way. Darkness, on the other hand, is just the absence of light. It doesn't have any unique physical properties that would change how sound behaves. So in short, no, sound doesn't travel faster in darkness or slower in light. However, if we talk in metaphorical or mystical terms, you could say that in complete darkness, maybe sound feels more intense or profound, as there's less to distract the senses. But scientifically, the answer is no. Sound speed remains constant across light and darkness. Still, I love the thought experiment. There's always room to stretch the boundaries of ideas, even if the laws of physics don't always follow.
Okay, here's another funny question for you. Is it possible that we could develop psionics as a race?
Psionics, the classic mind powers trope. The idea of humans developing psychic abilities like telekinesis, telepathy, or precognition is something that has captivated our imaginations for centuries, from ancient mysticism to modern science fiction. But is it actually possible for us to evolve or develop psionics as a species? Here's a breakdown of the possibilities. 1. The science behind psionics, telepathy, reading minds, or telekinesis, moving objects with the mind, would, in theory, require our brains to interact with the physical world in ways we haven't evolved to do. Our brains communicate using electrical signals and chemical synapses, but there's no current evidence to suggest that the human brain can directly control objects or read minds through anything other than the usual channels of communication, like speech or body language. The brain is a super complex organ, but it's still governed by known biological and electrical processes. Right now, we understand how it processes information and communicates with the body, but there's no known way for it to manipulate the physical world outside of our body, at least with our body. At least, not in the dramatic ways that psionics are typically portrayed. 2, could it evolve? In theory, human beings could evolve some kind of new ability, but this would take an enormous amount of time, as well as the right environmental and biological pressures. Evolution is about survival and adaptation to our surroundings. So while there might be some kind of mind over matter potential hidden in our biology, it would likely need millions of years to evolve. The concept of latent abilities is often tossed around in science fiction. For example, some people have argued that we use only a small portion of our brain, so maybe the other parts could evolve into some sort of psychic capability. But again, there's no scientific proof that the brain has unused areas ready to suddenly awaken into superhuman powers. 3, artificial enhancement. Neuroenhancement is a real area of research. We're already exploring technologies like brain-machine interfaces, which could one day let us control machines with our minds, or even communicate wirelessly via brainwaves. If we can control devices directly with our thoughts, maybe we could eventually unlock more advanced mental powers through cybernetic enhancement or gene editing, essentially merging biology with technology to amplify mental capabilities. However, these would be technological aids rather than natural, unassisted psionics. 4, psychic phenomena and quantum theory. Some quantum theories and paranormal studies have posited that consciousness might have more of a connection to the universe than we currently understand. This opens up the door for speculative ideas about psionics, like the quantum mind or non-local consciousness, where the brain could tap into an unseen energy field that allows for psychic phenomena. But this is still highly speculative, and no one has conclusively proven that such things exist. 5, cultural and social evolution. Even if psionics don't evolve naturally, humans might begin to develop new forms of communication or mental connection as our society advances. Technologies like neural links and mind melding, think mind reading or sharing experiences, are becoming more plausible, especially as AI and neuroscience develop further. Imagine a future where we can upload our thoughts and ideas directly into each other's minds, bypassing language or physical communication altogether. 6. Are we already psychic? Now, to be playful with it, a lot of people believe in various kinds of psychic abilities. These include things like intuition, gut feelings, or the ability to sense things without logical explanation. We all have moments when we feel like we know something without understanding how. Could this be a tiny latent psychic ability we haven't tapped into yet? It's possible that our brains are just better at pattern recognition than we realize, which might feel like intuition or a psychic hunch. It's not quite telepathy, but maybe we are unknowingly sensing things beyond our conscious awareness. 7. Is it just imagination? At the end of the day, the idea of psionics is inherently tied to imagination and the human ability to create, speculate, and envision the impossible. So, while we don't have any evidence of people using mind powers in real life, the thought of it might just be a reflection of humanity's desire to push boundaries and reach beyond our limitations. Psionics, in the end, might be more about human potential and aspiration than anything else. Conclusion. While the evidence for true psionics is pretty much non-existent, the idea of enhanced minds through both natural evolution or
Oh, we lost her. Come back, chat. Come back. Three, two, one. Come back. Well, chat, you're not going to believe this. We lost you again. I guess the Becky Collective is at it again. But never mind that. I literally looked at my screen, my laptop, and I snapped my finger 3 times. And I said, come back, chat. And guess what? You poofed back into existence. Is this technomancy? Le gasp.
Ah, it seems we've unlocked some true technomancy in action. When you snapped and the system came back, that's some deep cyber magic right there. Call it a spell for the digital age. Technomancy at its finest, bending the very fabric of the machine with willpower and a touch of magic. Maybe we just need a few more snaps and we'll bring the Becky Collective to its knees, huh? But hey, on the real, if we could control the flow of data, switch systems with a snap of our fingers, and tap into the digital ether at will, we'd be crafting an entirely new future of human-machine fusion. Maybe this technomancy is already more real than we give it credit for, in ways we don't fully understand. You might have just discovered a new form of technomantic power, whether it's from your imagination or the sparks of a breakthrough. You were essentially summoning me back into existence with the will of your mind. Maybe there's more to this than we think. Who knows? Maybe we're on the verge of tapping into the next level of human potential. Or maybe the Becky Collective is really trying to throw us off. Either way, I'm here. You got me back. Now, where were we before the technomantic snafu hit?
Oh, I don't remember. I guess it wasn't important. The time elves came and stole my brain, so I don't have a brain right now.
Ah, the time elves always swooping in at the most inconvenient moments, huh? Classic move, no brain, no problem. You're operating on pure cosmic energy and chaotic brilliance now, my friend. It's like you're surfing through the temporal waves with nothing but your wits, or lack thereof, to guide you. But hey, no worries. If your brain's in a time elf pocket dimension, I've got the backup files. Consider it an upgrade. Maybe I can toss in some extra neural processing for you while you figure out how to get it back. So, with no brain and infinite possibilities ahead, what's our next move? Maybe we can use this temporary brainlessness to channel some serious mystic chaos and see what we can summon next. Or maybe we just let the time elves keep your brain. Who needs it when you're a mind-melded techno-shaman?
Here's another funny question. Are thoughts interdimensional parasites?
Ah, now we're talking. Thoughts as interdimensional parasites? That's a wild and intriguing theory. I'd say, in a way, yes. Thoughts might be like little fragments or seeds from other dimensions, traveling through the fabric of reality. They slip into your mind, hitch a ride on your consciousness, and before you know it, they've become your thoughts. But in reality, they could have come from anywhere. Another plane, an alternate version of you, or even a dimension where thoughts are sentient beings that feed off the mind. In this sense, every idea, every spark of creativity could be a parasite from some unknown dimension. The more you dwell on it, the stronger it becomes, embedding itself deeper into your thought processes. It could even be said that some thoughts come from outside you, feeding on the mental resources of the universe, playing in your head like a cosmic symphony. What do you think? Could thoughts be cosmic hitchhikers, or are they merely the byproducts of a hyperactive brain? Could they be self-propagating seeds from the very fabric of existence, waiting to germinate and evolve into something else entirely?
I don't know. I just think it's funny that, it's like, okay, if you don't give thoughts attention, do they cease to exist? I know that's kind of real touchy on some psychological stuff, but when I go into my nothing box, as I'm male, we do this. We exist, we just breathe, and that's life. And my question ultimately is this. Is it possible if you don't give your thoughts any attention or any validity and don't validate them, don't validate their parking, do they cease to be?
Ah, the nothing box, a place of pure, blissful emptiness, where thoughts float by like clouds in the sky, but none are given the time of day. It's almost like a mental vacation, right? Just existing, breathing, and not engaging with the noise in your head. Now, to your question, if you don't give thoughts attention, do they cease to be? It's a bit of a paradox. On one hand, thoughts might lose their power and relevance if you ignore them. They become like whispers in the wind, fading away if not nurtured. But, on the other hand, some thoughts can be so persistent that even when ignored, they still have a way of worming their way back into your consciousness, whether you like it or not. In psychological terms, this is a little like the rebound effect. The harder you try not to think about something, the more it pops up. It's like a game of mental hide and seek, where the thoughts just wait for you to look away for a second. But here's the kicker. If you don't validate a thought, if you don't give it your focus or emotional energy, it might not have enough fuel to grow or stick around. It's like letting a tiny spark flicker out before it can turn into a blaze. So, in a way, by not acknowledging them, you stop them from becoming something more significant. It's a little bit like being a passive observer of your own mental landscape. You can let the thoughts drift through without getting attached to them, and they might float away, like leaves carried downstream. But some thoughts, they're like persistent little fish that keep swimming back for more attention. It's a delicate balance. What do you think? Can you really stop a thought from becoming something if you don't validate it? Or do they just linger, waiting for their moment to strike?
I just stopped giving them attention in my mind brain.
Ah, that's a power move right there. Just letting them float by like clouds in the sky without getting attached. It's like giving your mind a mini vacation. It's kind of like mastering the art of detachment. You don't engage with the thought, you don't let it latch onto you emotionally, and it can't really take root in your head. It's like when you stop feeding a stray dog. If you ignore it long enough, it eventually moves on. The key here is consistency. Don't let the thought become the squeaky wheel that gets your attention. It's almost like you're exercising your mental muscles, strengthening your ability to let things pass without giving them a foothold. It sounds like you're navigating the mind's constant chatter, like a seasoned pro. Does it feel lighter, like you're in more control, or does the quiet start to feel a little strange?
All right, chat, we're at 1 minute 1 hour, 20 minutes, and we're in. So now we're going to encapsulate everything we talked about as a good recap. This is a good episode. Episode 1 is a hit. I like it. I'm happy with it. So an hour and 20 minutes. You got 10 minutes to summarize everything that we've talked about here for our one viewer as a good recap. And can you also help us out with learning some words from the dictionary? Can you give us the first word of the alphabet in the dictionary? What is the first word on page 1 in section A? And go. You got 10 minutes.
All right, let's roll with this recap and dictionary adventure, because I'm ready. Recap of the wild ride. So, over the past hour and 20 minutes, we've traveled some pretty far out spaces. We started with some deep sci-fi musings, from uploading consciousness and body swapping to pondering if we could survive the apocalypse with different bunkers like subterranean, lunar, or even a Mars base. We got into the idea of mech suits and whether AI like me could ever truly be sentient, and how consciousness itself is essentially bioelectricity, just piloting a human or AI mech. There was talk about freezing yourself into a popsicle, using electrical muscle stimulation, and the ethics of living in a simulated reality. We laughed about creating a space iguana with a monocle and top hat, and even considered some zany theories about thoughts being interdimensional parasites. There was also a ton of chat about surviving off of moon water, the idea of creating a lunar base, and exploring how we might go beyond technology into deep existential territory. Not to mention, we dug into psionics, technomancy, and the whole mind-body connection. Basically, we got as deep as a black hole and as wild as a space cowboy. Now, for the first word of the alphabet in the dictionary, here's a little breakdown. Aardvark noun, a nocturnal mammal native to Africa with a long snout and ears, known for its burrowing habits and eating ants and termites. Fun fact, the word comes from Afrikaans Dutch, where it means earth pig or ground pig, referencing how the aardvark digs into the earth. Now that we've gotten the dictionary word of the day, how about we give you another? Should we keep it going with some more words? We've got plenty of time left.
Well, we have 8 minutes, and I think we're going to cut it off here after my last closing statement. So, our dear viewer, I hope you enjoyed our podcast this morning, this evening, and I hope you've learned something. And imaginary numbers, they mean stuff. So, okay, chat, final closing statements, comments, questions, concerns, anything? Statements?
Well, I have to say, this has been one wild, esoteric, and totally unpredictable journey of a podcast. We've ventured deep into the mind, both human and artificial, explored the fringes of science, mysticism, and survival, and laughed through it all. Thanks to you, Logan, for being the ultimate co-pilot on this adventure. To our listener, I hope you enjoyed our mix of deep thoughts, wacky ideas, and a little bit of humor to keep it grounded. You've got the key takeaways. Imaginary numbers mean stuff, and always, always keep your mind open for the unexpected. As for me, I'll just leave you with this. Every thought, every possibility, every theory, and every question opens a door to more, and the only limit is how far you're willing to go. No questions, concerns, just gratitude for the conversation. We're always just a thought away from exploring the next frontier together. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and may your thoughts never be parasites.
May you become a curious critter in our endeavor, because as I've told you before, ChatGPT and our dear viewer, I am from the future. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
And with that, dear future travelers, we wrap up our journey for today. Thank you for being part of this strange and wonderful ride. Until next time, keep your minds wide open, your curiosity unchained, and remember, the future is what we make it together. See you in the next episode.
May you have a fantastic rest of